When traveling for diving, what's the one thing you should never leave home without? Let's dive in and find out. Welcome back to Tampa Bay Diving. My name is Blake and I'm a professional recreational scuba instructor and content creator, and I make these videos with the sole purpose of helping you improve your dives. If you haven't already, please dive down, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ring that dive bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. You guys are a part of my family and I love seeing you every week. So, before we jump into this week's topic of dive travel, if you missed last week's video, we announced that we have two new affiliations with Backscatter and Matthias Lebo, as well as we announced our 2025 trip to Roatan. If you haven't seen it, I'll put the video in the end cards and the timestamps are on the video so you can skip ahead to the announcement details near the end of the video. And afterwards, head on over to our website at tampabaydiving.com. Click on the travel button to check out the trip. If you click on the spaces available button, it will open up a PDF brochure with all of the details of the trip. There are several spaces available and you guys are my family. I want you to be my dive buddies in paradise. Now, I know that everyone has their own opinion of what one should never travel without, but I wanted to give you mine, and that is dive insurance. You, the divers that make the world go round, spend your hard-earned money on travel to experience all the wonderful things that our oceans, seas, and lakes have to offer. And let's face it, in this economy, with this inflation, your dollar is more precious than ever, and you need to protect your money, vacation, and health. Now, having said that, I'm going to give you 3 reasons why you should get some form of travel insurance before you ever leave home. The first one is the unknown factor of events or occurrences that are out of your control. Whether it's a pandemic, sudden illness that becomes you, or the loss of a loved one, those all can dramatically throw a wrench into your travel plans. And you don't necessarily know when they could happen. So in 2020, I had a dive trip planned up to Seattle, Washington to dive the Puget Sound. And I wanted to dive with all the amazing wildlife of the Pacific Northwest, including the giant Pacific Coast octopus. Now, legend has it that these things can get as big as Volkswagens, and that region is known for a very diverse wildlife population. So I had the trip fully paid for, from flights, lodging, and general transportation on the ground. And as we all know, Washington State shut down for quite an extended amount of time, making that trip impossible for me to reschedule then due to student schedules and prior commitments. Thank God I purchased travel insurance.
Dear 8-pound, 6-ounce, newborn infant Jesus, don't even know a word yet.
Rather than being out the full amount of everything I paid, I was only out a couple $100s. Now, I'm not trying to make this about a COVID debate. Your thoughts on the matter are your own. Please don't berate myself or others in the comments. I don't want this to turn political. I'm simply saying that the facts are that this dive trip was not possible at the time for factors outside of my control. I know I'm not the only diver that had a trip canceled during that time frame. If you lost a dive trip, I hope that you had travel insurance and were able to recoup some of that money. I'm still bummed out about that trip, but I hope to make it back up there again one day. Let me know if you have ever dove the Puget Sound, and if you have any pics you would like to share, we'll post them on our social media. Links are down in the description below. Maybe we could even plan a group trip to the Puget Sound. Let me know if that's something y'all would be interested in. The second reason you should purchase travel insurance for your dive trip is bad weather. Weather is generally predictable, and I say that loosely. Take my home state of Florida, for example. We're known for generally warm weather and great diving, but we also have a lot of thunderstorms and the occasional hurricane. Either one of those will cancel out a dive trip for a day or more depending on which one comes. With weather models, those are for the most part predictable. The exact path of a hurricane will more than likely change, but its effects on the water and visibility will not. In 2022, I had a trip planned on the weekend after Hurricane Ian struck just south of us. Now, this trip was booked weeks in advance before we ever knew the storm would exist, but yet it had developed and steamrolled its way toward the Gulf Coast of Florida. Now, my trip was down in Key West, but the storm was so large that it made conditions for a dive a nightmare, and for some time afterwards. Thanks to travel insurance, I was able to rebook the trip a couple of months later and make the weekend drive down to Key West and get some great dives in. I advise all of my students who come from out of town to purchase travel insurance because we just don't know if the storm will blow us out. Now, in this part of Florida, we're pretty lucky to have the springs about 1 to 2 hours north of us, depending on the spring. And if conditions in the Gulf are not favorable to dive in, we can more than likely head up there to get our diving done. The third reason you should buy travel insurance is lost/damaged gear. How many of you have ever had an airline lose or damage a piece of your luggage? Yes, and yes for me. Airlines are notoriously known for their bad customer service and overpricing these days, and it doesn't seem to be getting any better. Next time you fly, take a look out the window of the terminal and watch the employees throw bags around like they're listening to heavy metal during a lifting workout. I only check what I absolutely cannot carry on, and I pack everything with a cushion so that when it's being thrown around, it minimizes damage. But all the padding in the world won't protect your gear if the airline sends it to the wrong country and loses it in transit. It's happened to me. Many companies that offer travel insurance for the diving industry will either include or give you the option to add on gear damage/loss protection that will cover the cost of replacing your equipment if such a thing were to happen. And given the cost of all of our gear, it seems like a no-brainer to purchase that, but that's just my own opinion. Now, there are multiple companies you can go with to protect your trips, two of the big ones being Dan and Dive Assure. Now, again, I don't want this to turn into a huge debate and fighting in the comments. I have Dan, and I've never had an issue with him. Yes, I know that there is a channel much bigger than ours, and everything that they've claimed to recently experience with Dan is a nightmare. But I personally have never had an issue. If you don't like Dan, then that's fine. Choose another agency. I just want the comment section to stay clean and positive and not turn into a scuba board argument style MMA match with insults being slung around. Let me know down in the comments below if you've ever had a dive trip canceled and did you have insurance to protect it? And if you feel so inclined to support a small veteran-owned business, please dive down, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and ring that dive bell so you don't miss any of our future videos. I'll be back next week with another video, but until then, plan your dive and dive your plan.